You ever experience a betrayal so quiet it doesn't even look like betrayal? There's no big explosion, no final argument, no loud confession. It's subtle, it's cold. It's the kind of betrayal that creeps in through silence and distance. And what makes it worse is that it doesn't come from an enemy. It comes from the woman you chose. The one you stood beside when she had nothing. The one you supported when no one else did. You didn't pick her because she was the most polished. You picked her because you saw something in her potential, depth, maybe even pain you thought you could help heal. You gave her your time, your strength, your protection, your loyalty, and instead of honoring that, she resented it. She slowly started to pull away, not because you weren't enough, but because you were too much, too stable, too consistent, too real. You became a mirror, reflecting everything she hadn't yet faced within herself. And instead of using that mirror to evolve, she used it as a weapon to tear you down. She started searching for your flaws, amplifying your smallest mistakes, turning your leadership into control and your boundaries into coldness. All because being in your presence exposed her own lack of discipline, her emotional chaos, her refusal to grow. And if you've been through this, you know the kind of pain it causes. It makes you question your own worth. It makes you wonder if you gave too much, if you loved too deeply. But the truth is, you didn't fail. You just outgrew someone who never intended to meet you at your level. And that silent betrayal, it wasn't your fault. It was a consequence of her being unready to face herself in the reflection of a man who stood tall, calm, and unshaken. You stayed solid while she started drifting. And it wasn't loud, it was subtle. She stopped reaching out first, stopped appreciating the little things. Her compliments turned into critiques, her warmth into cold silence, but you felt it. A shift in her energy, a quiet retreat. She didn't argue with you, she just started shutting down emotionally, slowly withdrawing the very connection she once fought to build. And all the while, you kept showing up. You kept protecting, guiding, holding it all together. You tried to make sense of it, wondering if you said something wrong, if you missed something, if you changed. But deep down, you know, you didn't. You were consistent. You stayed in your purpose. You led with clarity. The truth is, it wasn't about what you did wrong, it was about what you did right. You were too grounded to be manipulated, too focused to be distracted, too emotionally stable to be dragged into chaos. And that stability, it made her feel small. Not because you made her feel that way, but because her insecurities screamed louder when she stood beside a man who didn't flinch, a man who didn't chase, who didn't need her to feel whole. So she turned to tactics, passive aggression, withholding affection, comparing you to others just to see if you'd react. That wasn't love, it was control disguised as connection. And when she realized you wouldn't dance to her emotional tune, she began pushing harder, hoping you'd finally crack, break character, low-key composer. But you didn't, and that's what unsettled her the most. Because she wasn't trying to love you anymore, she was trying to conquer you. And the moment she realized she couldn't, the respect turned to resentment. Not because you changed, but because you stayed the same man she once admired. You weren't arrogant, you weren't loud about your worth. You just moved with quiet certainty and that calm, unshakable presence. It became a problem for her, because it highlighted the chaos she hadn't dealt with. She wanted a leader until you led. She wanted a strong man until your strength exposed her weakness. That's the contradiction most men don't realize. A woman might say she wants stability, protection, vision, but when she's not ready for it, all of that becomes intimidating. She doesn't feel inspired by it. She feels judged by it. And instead of leveling up, she begins to lash out. You became the target, not because you failed her, but because you showed her who she wasn't ready to become. Your consistency made her restless. Your logic made her emotional spirals harder to justify. Your focus made her feel directionless. But none of that was your fault. You weren't trying to compete. You were just being who you are, a man who's evolving. And the closer she got to that energy, the more she felt her own stagnation. And it hurt her pride. So she shifted the narrative. She started painting you as distant, emotionally unavailable, controlling even anything to protect herself from facing the real issue, that she couldn't keep up. And instead of learning from you, growing with you, building beside you, she started tearing you down, subtly at first, then more boldly. The very things she once admired in you became the things she used against you. Your discipline was now a lack of spontaneity. Your calm nature was now a lack of passion. Your structure was now controlling. That's what happens when your elevation becomes her insecurity. She stops seeing you as her man and starts seeing you as her opponent. Not because you changed, but because she refused to. You didn't beg, you didn't chase, you didn't play the emotional chess game. And that's what truly broke the illusion for her. Because most men fold when the affection gets pulled away. Most men start pleading when they feel her slipping. But not you. You stood firm in your value. You stayed composed. You didn't react to her silence with desperation. And that scared her. Because a woman who's used to controlling men emotionally can't handle the one she can't move. She won't admit it, but your stillness felt like rejection to her. Not because you rejected her, but because you didn't bend your character to fit her mood swings. You didn't validate her passive aggression. You didn't crumble when she withheld love, and in her mind, that meant you didn't care. But that's the twisted part. She wasn't looking for love, she was looking for power. And when she couldn't gain control through softness, she tried through absence. She used distance as a weapon. Affection became a reward system, and every time you refused to dance to her emotional chaos, she got more frustrated. That's how women test a man's emotional frame, not always with drama, but with withdrawal, silence, coldness. And when that doesn't break you, when you keep showing up in your truth without compromising your dignity, it drives them insane, because it reminds them that they're not in control of your emotions. And for some women, that's unacceptable. They'd rather be in charge of a weak man than respect a strong one, so they provoke, they guilt trip, they emotionally sabotage, not because they hate you but because you exposed just how much of their love was conditional on their ability to control, and when they realize you won't play that game, they either evolve or they leave. Most choose to leave. When she finally walks away, it won't be into the arms of a better man. That's the irony. She won't choose someone more disciplined, more grounded, more capable. No, she'll go to someone easier. Someone who doesn't challenge her. Someone who folds under pressure, who agrees with everything she says, who lets her lead while pretending it's love. Because control feels safer to her than growth. Being in charge of a weaker man strokes her ego more than being humbled by a real one. And that's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of where she's at in her own life. She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because she couldn't rise to meet you. And instead of admitting that, she convinced herself that you were the problem, that you were too cold, too serious, too emotionally unavailable. But deep down, she knows the truth. She knows she fumbled a man who was built for more. A man who didn't need her but chose her. And that's a hard truth for her to sit with. So she escapes it. She runs to a simpler dynamic, a man she can mold. One who doesn't require her to look in the mirror. But you walk away clean. Because you never stooped. You never dimmed your light just to keep her comfortable. You let her go when she chose lesser, and that's your power. You didn't lose her, she lost you. And maybe one day, when the illusion fades, she'll realize that. But by then, you'll be long gone. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Because men like you don't chase what chooses to settle. You build, you elevate. And eventually, you attract a woman who's not threatened by your strength, but inspired by it. One who matches your fire instead of fearing your flame.